your unconscious mind. Voila. So if it's happening in your mind and it appears to be unfolding in the world out there, well, that's great news, because peace comes from within mind, and anything that's not peaceful, and it appears that the world isn't really peaceful, right? It's not. It wasn't made in peace. Everything falls apart. Everything dies. Whoa. What happened to my Chromebook? I don't think it was my Chromebook. It could have just, browser. Yikes. So anyway, guys, peace comes from within. And anything that's not peaceful, that appears to be out there in the world, has its origins in your unconscious mind. So on two levels, ultimately, the whole idea that peace comes from within is pretty empowering. And then when you begin to understand that what's really out there, what appears to be out there, is actually happening within your unconscious, and it's being mirrored back to you, then you could start getting into your unconscious mind and figuring out why your life is the way that it is, why there appears to be chaos, why there appears to be problem. It's always your unconscious. The world's just acting it out because there's one mind. Even though there appears to be a bunch of bodies, a bunch of people, a bunch of minds, one science that goes into this, if you want to delve there. The ascended masters, wise minds have known this for a long time, forever. Known it for a long time, been teaching it. But if you want to get into science, look into quantum physics. There's one quantum field, and it's thought. So it's not separate densities. Everything you're seeing is space. You're thinking it, what you're seeing. You're imagining what you're seeing. You're dreaming what you see. One quantum field of thought. What you think, imagine, and dream appears to be super duper physical, tangible. It appears to be separate. So I'm not saying it doesn't appear in the illusion to be that way. It does, but an appearance, an illusion, a seeming, they're not truth. They're not reality. So you really have to think about the word appearance and illusion. The whole world that appears to be out there is actually your unconscious mind acting out what's going on there. When I'm pointing inside the head, it's important to realize that most of us identify with that. So I say it's in here and then out there, but in reality, there's only one mind. So really, in reality, if we're going to take off the kid gloves, your mind, even if I point here, it's not this little thing, it's not your body. Your mind is the container, the single mind holding the whole tempest in the teacup. Or your mind's the teacup and the tempest is inside. But long and the short of it, your mind is unlimited. It goes forever. And all the stuff going on inside, it's just your unconscious. So when you start to even fathom this concept, you understand why this is the key to peace. Because as long as you're a victim to out there and you believe it's not the unconscious, which the ego has tried to ingeniously convince you, you'll always be a victim and you'll never have peace, predominant. And you'll be scared and you'll view yourself as small and you'll view yourself as, and none of it's true because it's all your dream. Like Buddha said, I am the dreamer of the dream. Jay in the Course of Miracles, all your time is spent in dreaming. You're in bed, you're dreaming. You wake up, you're dreaming. It's all a dream. So when you start thinking, oh my goodness, the peace is actually, I'm pointing to here because that's what we're going to say for now, but your mind is forever. But peace is in your mind. It's in your mind. It's within. It's never in externals. And whatever's going on in your life is your unconscious mind acting out. So when you start to even toy around with these truths, you realize, oh my goodness, I could start doing the mind training and I'll have eternal peace, slow and steady, or I'll have increasing peace and then I'll get to eternal peace. The big mistake that everybody in this world makes is they look outside. They look to externals, but it's all in their mind. However, when they look out, it's just their unconscious, and it shows that they're afraid to look within. Any mental scientist, student of the mind, has probably done a little research into Buddhism. And Buddha's, one of his tenets, I am awake, I am the dreamer of the dream. So he figured out, I'm actually this one, it's just one mind, and that's me. That's dreaming at all. It's actually outside time and space. And of course, in Miracles, Jay figured out that even that one mind, which we call the ego, is an illusion, and only God is. Eternal love, eternal light. So he forgave the illusion of the ego and figured out that we are the Christ. And there's nothing quite like his teaching. Even the Gnostics and individuals who saw somewhat of an illusory nature to this world still made certain aspects of it real, or still did some things from the ego, and they didn't quite find the way out. He's the first one who woke up from the dream entirely and stepped outside. And the Course is a mind training manual where he will step you through to find the peace of God. But what we're talking about today is the simple idea that sometimes it's highly difficult and very, very uncomfortable to understand, that the peace is in your mind and it's not in the externals and whatever's going on in the world out there. And again, this is blogging or life. So I said blogging to begin with because I'm a blogging guide, and I sell courses and I sell ebooks and I offer blogging tips posts to bloggingfromparadise.com, which is my site. But this is life. When we talk about practical blogging tips, when we talk about practical life tips and all that jazz, I get it. We're in the world, so we're working with externals. But as you're doing the worldly stuff, you want to keep thinking about peace is in my mind. Peace is in my mind. If I'm seeing chaos, it's that I have a lot of ups and downs and roller coasters. It's because in your unconscious mind, you have a lot of guilt and a lot of fear. And the evidence is the chaos in your life. But the more that you remember you're thinking it, according to quantum physics, or life is but a dream, or Jay in the Course, Buddha, I should say, I am the dreamer of the dream, or Jay in the Course of Miracles, all your time is spent in dreaming. Bed, wake up, you're still dreaming. You're still projecting. Then that's a real difference maker, because, and quantum physics, again, quantum physics. I'm going to return to that for folks who have resistance to any type of worldly organized religion. That's why I don't even say the full name when it comes to the Course. I say Jay, because that's the name they use in Disappearance of the Universe. And it helps me too, because I have a lot of ideas with the other individual that I've grew up with that weren't really in alignment with the historical Jay. So when you start realizing this and you're looking at quantum physics, I'm thinking, I'm dreaming, I'm imagining, even though it appears to be in the illusion, really dance. In reality, you'll start to understand that the peace has to come from in your mind, and any of the wackiness out there, chaos or ups and downs, are just your unconscious being played out, reflected, mirror back to you. So that's the key, because you're no longer a victim if it's all happening in your mind, conscious and most of it unconscious. Even though the unconscious stuff could be a bit difficult to take at first when you've had some really rough experiences in your life. I mean, rough experiences. Once you understand they're happening in the unconscious, not only are you no longer victimized by these experiences, but you also realize that if you weren't aware of it and you weren't conscious of it, that's why, of course, some of these situations were horrible. Nobody in their right mind, nobody consciously, unless they were in a really bad spot, would do this to themselves. But when it becomes a dream, that starts to take the charge out of it. And when you start to realize that the only reason you're here on planet Earth, or appear to be at least in the dream, is to wake up your mind and find that peace, to discover who you really are, way beyond, completely beyond the world, then you'll get really serious about mind training. The turning point for most of us is usually whatever's going on in the world. It becomes so intolerable and horrible and such an abject nightmare in the world that you say, I'm fed up. There has to be a better way. And that's when you start to look within. You realize the world is a script. Multiple choice, maybe it's an open-ended script, but you start seeing like things that happen so easily for some individuals, for some minds, or we'll say people, let's say people in a level of form. And then yourself as a person, things are so freaking hard. And you're thinking, what the heck's going on here? Is it really unfair? Yeah. At a level of form, until you realize that it's a dream, that you're thinking it, and that it's happening at an unconscious level. Those are the key points. That's how you find the peace. As long as you look out there for something in the dream, you're never going to have peace, because everything in the dream, number one, it's a dream, it's thought, so it's not real. It's not, it appears to be tangible, appears to be, but, and number two, if you're paying very close attention, and most people don't, but when you come fed up enough, you'll start looking, you realize that everything in this world, everything in the dream falls apart. In the Course, Jay says, which it's perfect logic, God is eternal, made an eternal Christ, so anything that he didn't make falls apart. Eternity doesn't know what time and space is. Eternity, it only knows eternity. It's flawless logic. Flawless. Eternal, time, no, they don't work. They don't work together. You can't have eternity. You can't have forever and yeah, I live for, a baby lives for 2 seconds or 2 minutes or no, there's eternity. When you put your faith, your hopes, your dream in a world that's guaranteed the world itself to fall apart, but in all these things, and even in the case of something keeps increasing. So let's say you'll have peace if you have a lot of money. You make a lot of money, you make more. As it keeps going higher, you'll have this temporary feeling of perhaps peace and a temporary feeling of comfort, a temporary high. Yeah, that happens. Temporary. And then that goes away because it's not real. If it were real, you'd feel that way forever, because there's only eternity is real. Love is real. Course, Jay. Nothing real can be threatened and nothing unreal exists. So when you keep looking to the unreal, the illusion, and you're like, I have this. That's why you feel amazing. Who ever in history has just kept making money and found eternal peace, or just even in this bodily form, nonstop peace, just pure peace based on the external? It's never happened and it never will. And that's where everybody in this world who doesn't look within their mind for the peace eventually realizes, yeah, even if everything appears to be going great in the script, in the illusion, that you still don't have that constant peace. You have, oh, I need more. In the chorus, Jay, what is an idol? More. You need more. You need more. You need more. So once you need more, you don't have peace. If you did have peace, you wouldn't want more. It's logical. What's the turning point? And again, I just want to drill down. Where do you usually start wanting to go into, there's got to be a better way, and I want to go within my mind to find the peace and forgive the unconscious fear that's blocking it? Because you're made as peace and eternal and love. That's your identity. All this other stuff is a hoax. It's made up. It's dreamed. We're establishing this is a dream. This is quantum physics. If you even want to go to a worldly science, and they have to talk about, since it's of the world, there has to be some matter to it. There has to be something tangible. But even as science says, the whole universe is the tiniest percentage you appear to see, but it's empty space. It's just a dream. It's not real. This is the idea of density, the idea of separation, form, senses. All those things feel that way because of a lot of horrific unconscious guilt in your mind. And again, you've pushed it out of awareness. It's unconscious. The horrific images, the nightmares, it's just reflecting back to you the really rough beliefs in your unconscious mind. Now, if you're willing to forgive them radically, to look past them, to feel the fear, whatever comes up, and then forgive them, and you could do it with your inner guide. Some may call the inner guide Jay, some the Holy Spirit. No religious, just strictly Course in Miracles. No religious relation there. Slowly, the Holy Spirit will begin to take, or Jay, the unconscious guilt out of your mind, which reveals more and more who you are, peace. So then when the wacky stuff goes on in the world, I'm going to point in here, even though your mind is eternal and it goes everywhere, but when the wacky stuff happens in the world, you have peace in your mind, so it makes no difference. So you're calm. And the ups and the downs in the world and the illusion in the dream, you'll know as you're experiencing it, oh, I'm just dreaming it. So think of the attitude that you've had, how peaceful you would be, how happy if your attitude as you are walking through this world was not that it is real, but that you were having a dream in bed in the morning, a pleasant dream. I mean, nightmare, but you were aware that you were dreaming and that it was just thoughts, images, pictures. Have a lot of peace. Now, this type of training takes tons of practice, and I'm an eternal student. I'm sharing this because I was pulled to do so, guided to do so. Eternal student, but just sharing my thoughts. And when it goes what appears to be out there, it just could help other minds, which is only ultimately one mind, but it could help what appears to be other minds take a deep breath and say, I got to look inside my mind for peace. I've had it. Now, I'll call it the parable of Ryan because one of my favorite Course in Miracle guides, David Hoffmeister, talks about the parable of David. Since it's only a dream, and who you really are is completely beyond it, abstract, eternal, everything. I had in the dream, before I realized it was a dream, a number of what would be perceived as perhaps fairly traumatic, rough situations, intense situations in the world that eventually brought me here. And then I had happiness as the world would judge it, circling the globe. And I love what I do, but I realized that going around the world, it's really fun and it's enjoyable and it's freeing, but it definitely didn't give me eternal peace or just constant peace. So you see from both aspects, some intense, rough experiences highly uncomfortable. It's triggered a lot of unconscious guilt and a lot of unconscious fear that was rough. Then when I started having these other experiences, and it was back and forth that sometimes these phenomenal circling the globe, and I love it, and it's so much fun. And I think being in alignment with course principles and choosing my fun and freedom and all that good stuff, I was definitely doing some coursework and mind training, choosing this life. So amazing. Yet in the same way, I didn't start to find a little bit of more of constant peace, no matter what the world appeared to throw at me or matter what came up in the world, until I started to embody this concept that it comes from in my mind, which just like you is everywhere. Even though a lot of times, and I know you've probably been in the same boat or maybe still do, I just think, oh, I'm just this body and there's a mind in here. No, no, no. It's just all one thought. And you're part of it. And I am too. We're just in the one mind. We're one mind. That's it. When I started figuring out there's got to be a better way from the nightmares ultimately in the world to even having these phenomenal experiences and seeing like, I still don't have that constant peace. That's when I turned towards these concepts. And most have stressed it for the longest time. The wise minds, the seers, the teachers, the ascended masters, enlightened beings. Like, even if you've been raised Christianity, the kingdom of heaven is within. That's Jay's course. That's the course, A Course in Miracles. The kingdom of heaven really is within. He's not kidding. Peace is in your mind. It's not in the world. Be of good cheer. I have overcome the world. And then he took 7 years of a woman's time in this world to explain how you too can do it. I did it. Here are all the workbook lessons. The peace of God is in your mind. It's not in the world. Your only identity is abstract peace, love. That's it. This whole world, too much to take, quantum physics. And even if that's too much to take, this, you can only take this in a little bit at a time, guys, usually in the beginning, because your belief system is so contrary to it. And you're bombarded constantly with the ego and its message to look out in the world, more, 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 more. Then you start seeing these people that get more and more. And unless they train their minds, they got a lot of problems and they don't have peace. Achieve more, get more, more, more. I'll teach you how to get more. Now, hey, I'm in the world. And my wife and I had a pizza. We used money to buy it. And I run a business and I content. So I get it. I'm in the dream, but I understand as I'm doing these things that it's more and more that it's a dream, and that's what gives me peace. And I keep realizing anytime I go to externals now, when I have in the past, that I've been bitterly disappointed. Highs, lows, roller coaster, until you're finally like, gosh, this can't be it. These wise minds, these ascended masters, these enlightened beings, they have to know what they're talking about. Let's put it this way. They would have to be the idiots. Jesus would have had to have been an idiot, or Jay had to have been an idiot. Buddha would have had to have been a moron. Yogananda, a complete doofus. And you guys know they're not. You guys know they've figured it out. And this world would have to be a fountain of wisdom for what you believe now to be true and what's been drilled into you. You think this world is wise? We're one mind, and we think we're only safe because we murder each other. You think that's wisdom? I feel free or safe because I could kill someone? There's nobody out there. It's just one dream. There's no other person out there. Quantum physics, the course. And even the symbolism of it, even though it is only a dream, even though it appears to be very tangible and real, the symbolism's absurd, because the whole idea is I'll kill me. the person you appear to be killing or murdering or hurting or the insult, you're one mind. So you're just hurting yourself on an unconscious level. And that's why you'll see people keep having problems and problems and problems. They appear to be over there or across from you, but they're in the same mind. And when you think they're a jerk or a moron or the source of your problems, they're showing your unconscious mind being reflected back to you. So it's what you think about yourself. Same mind, remember? You're looking at me now. We're the same mind. There's only one mind. Once you start chopping it up, you make the dream real, and you're going to have a load of problems. And you'll overcome the problems by getting more in the world, and then you'll have more problems. And all these things rob you of your peace. It's a guarantee. Guaranteed. I've done it. And the thing to remember about my life, guys, is that in this script, in this lifetime, Parable of Orion, I've really decided to dig deep into my fears, into the unconscious, before I was even really kind of aware of it at the time. But I gave up the special relationships in my hometown, in my home state, by being a digital nomad, the salary of being an employee, by being an entrepreneur. And I just circled the globe nonstop with for 13 years, and really the past number of years, my physical possessions are a Chromebook, phone, a week's change of clothes, a backpack, and a carry-on. So that's all I own. So think of the fears I had to face to shed my apartment, my BMW, worldly special relationships with family and friends. As far as being in the same proximity, look at the world that thinks I'm safe, I have peace because I'm surrounding myself with a lot of bodies and things. Of course, when another idol falls, the bitter tears, right? You get it. You don't get it, but then you do, and you're like, that makes sense. If I surround myself with a lot of stuff, there might be the temporary feeling of comfort and even the illusion of temporary peace, or you might feel like, I feel peaceful now. I feel like I'm settled. I can relax. I've made it a lot of money. And then that feeling goes away. You're not going to sit there for 6 years in a state of eternal peace and bliss because you've made $100,000 a year or you've made $1 million. Remember the show Billions, Bobby Axelrod, and I've heard this experience from quote unquote real life billionaires in the dream, where they said, "You're a deca now, buddy," which means he was worth $10 billion. It's like, what did it feel like? What did it feel like to you? And he said, you know what? It felt like when I was broke, no money, living in poverty on Long Island, and I found a 20 on the street. Bingo. And I've heard that experience from other folks who've made a ton of money, where they thought it was going to give them the peace or whatever, because it's an external. How could something external in a dream, how could a thought or a dream or an image, even though the world makes it so real, it's not, how could it give you anything eternal if it's an illusion? It makes sense when you use logic, but when you make it real, guys, and you're like, it's out there, your unconscious it's filled with fear. The more real you make this world, the more you'll suffer. Guaranteed, because everything, eventually you got to lose everything. Even if you make tons more money, you'll still have that feeling of loss until you find the peace in here. Oh man, wow, this is a good one, guys. Another half hour. I really feel like I've been riffing a little bit more in the world, but I just wanted to share it because a lot of bloggers, and I've experienced this myself, and I've gone more into the real world application outside of blogging, but they think that if this one technique or tool or even having worldly success is going to give them peace. I remember one of Yogananda's gurus, or one of the ascended masters he studied, where he said, develop peace of mind first, and anything in the world that is practical that you could use, as long as you appear to be in a body, is forthcoming. Phenomenal point. When you have poise and peace and you relax and you have trust in your mind, then the physical, tangible stuff, the money and the traffic, it just progressively gets easier and easier. And also, too, when it flows to you, you have the peace in mind. So it's just going to be like a practical thing that you use in the world. Like any money, transfer something to my wife in PayPal today or to the bank account or joint. So then I transfer that, and it's just like practical. Oh, I'm in the dream, I'm using food. So then we went and bought a pizza. It's practical, but it's not a big deal. You have the peace in here, and it takes a lot of mind training. And this is one of those fundamental points when you realize I get it. And I don't want to point to my mind. I'll just say in the mind, because it's not here. Your mind is everywhere. It's only one mind. But when you realize that it's an internal thing and that the world's just acting out your unconscious stuff, then that's the key, because then it's not happening to you anymore. It appears to be very much happening for you, because it is. It appears to be happening to you. In reality, it's happening for you to show you where your mind is at. And the more you face your unconscious fears by seeing that it is, you're dreaming it, and you radically forgive for what didn't happen, because it's a dream, right? It's thoughts. It's images. It takes the charge out of everything. It takes the fear out of your mind. I'm going to point here, but it takes the fear out of your mind. Your mind's everywhere, which then removes the charge from everything, the suffering, the pain. And I've been really radically forgiving for a while. And I remember back in Thailand in September of last year? Fall of last year. And we call it in America, but I was in Thailand, and I was in a motorbike accident that the world would have judged as kind of intense. A truck flew at me. It had just rained. I flew off the motorbike, slammed into the pavement hard, ripped up my toe, ripped up my knee, blood flowing down, and I didn't feel suffering. I didn't feel scared. I went back. I casually explained to my wife what happened. In the appearance in the world, she looked at me. She said, "Oh my God, you got blood flowing, bursting out of your toe, and you're, oh my God." And the bike was okay. Thank goodness it was a rental. But I told her, I'm like, honestly, babe, I don't feel barely any suffering at all. I feel peaceful and relaxed. That's what happens when you do the forgiveness. Because then you see, not only are you experiencing more and more that it's actually a dream or your thinking or thoughts, but your internal guide plucks out the fear and the unconscious guilt. So anything that happens in the world, you feel peace no matter what happens. So you appear to be assaulted, you appear to get in fight, you appear to get hurt, and it doesn't mean it all goes away. I mean, I've been practicing radical forgiveness for a while, but that was so tough for me to believe. When you pluck the unconscious fear out, the unconscious guilt by forgiving, you're not going to suffer as much. I have experience with it. Blood flowing out of my knee. I'm like, I feel relaxed. I feel fine. Blood blowing out of my toe, my elbow, even the whole truck coming at me. And again, I felt a little bit of fear. I'm not saying that it was a fearless experience, but I realized, oh my God, and if I would have freaked out, I would have been so angry at him. But when you get that crap out of your unconscious mind, when your internal guide or Jay or the Holy Spirit, you dream it, you radically forgive it, you're knowing the peace comes from within, and they pluck it out of your mind, you're not going to suffer as much. And this has happened, and I have lots of experiences, lots of mystical experiences. But the key is, guys, you have to buy into this personally and get your own experience. And I'm pointing because you'll never start to experience this inner peace predominantly and gain these realizations unless you start training your mind. And it's not really going to happen. I mean, it can. There's different ways, but the only way I'd share, because I've had the experience with it, and just check it out. At least check it out. Give it a shot. Is A Course in Miracles. So it's acim.org, and it's a mind training manual between you and your internal teacher. And I'll leave it at that. I've made mention references to it, but it's practical because it lays out workbook lessons and the text and the manual for teachers. It lays out these concepts. And another book, actually, I'd have you check out. This one I would strongly suggest that you read because it could be a nice stepping stone. maybe even with Course in Miracles, or you can get Course in Miracles too. It's called Disappearance of the Universe, right? Not a disappearance. I read it every day. I should know by now, but Disappearance of the Universe, and the author is Gary Renard. Now, you can get that through his own site, or you could also buy it through Amazon, of course. Like, I think everything, something that could be purchased on Amazon. But I'm giving you these practical guides because you're going to need some guidance. It doesn't usually happen like, well, I'm going to meditate and the world has a very strong hold on all of us at first, but you're only going to start realizing these things and going, oh my gosh, it's really true. Because when I first picked up the Course, I was like, what are you, nuts? This is supposed to be Jesus? It's crazy. And even Disappearance, my wife told me, yeah, it's two ascended masters who were apostles with Jesus, disciples, and they came back, and it's their last worldly identities before enlightened. I'm like, okay. Then horrible things happen in the world. Horrible in the dream, but just truly nightmarish things. And then stuff from my childhood that I repressed. Unpleasant experiences. Unpleasant. We'll leave it at that. When the tell-all comes out, maybe I'll share it with you. But I had to forgive him. And I got to that point saying there has to be a better way. When I put two and two, I'm like, this nightmare, some of these really horrific experiences that I saw in the world symbolically and in my life, a number of just horrible experiences in the world. And I'm like, this can't be it. This can't be reality. And I'd always been told, well, it's just reality. Life sucks. And I'm like, there's no way. There's no way. There's no way that love would create. There's no way that it hits when your life appears to get bad enough and you keep running into obstacles, hard obstacles, humiliation, embarrassment. So this lifetime in the script, the Ryan Biddulph parable, out of the thousands of lifetimes I've lived and that we've all lived, I've been doing training my prior lives. I know my prior lifetimes, but this is the lifetime where I'm like, okay, I'm not going to end my life this time. I'm not going to go in other directions that would be highly unpleasant, that I could have, because there are just various aspects of my life. And there has to be a better way. And for me, the Course was the better way. And that's when Helen wrote it. She's thinking there has to be a better way. The Course was a better way. But that's just one way. That's just one mind training manual. I only suggest it because, again, think of it. We believe this world is real. It's just drilled into us from the beginning. Even something like quantum physics, like that's pushed down. That's not in the mainstream. Not now, but come on. The whole world is based on the whole different belief system. The dream world is based on, and again, I don't blame it. It's just the ego is trying to live here. It's trying to survive. When your life gets bad enough, you'll realize that these ascended masters, if you're willing to get there, if you're willing to take that leap, they know what they're talking about, and the world doesn't, because the world's like, no, the answer has to be out here, make a ton of money. Even me, again, I had some really horrific experience, and I had some just tremendous experiences in the world, and I still do with travel. But you see, eventually, guys, you're only gonna have peace if it's within your mind. And that's the only place that it is. And it's not in the outside world. And when you look for it out there, of course it has to fall apart because it's in time and space. So let's say you put it in a relationship, and then your significant other, these people around you, like, what's going to happen to their bodies? Forget the idea of death, of putting the body aside. That creates so much grief and rage and guilt. That's maybe the most intense in the world in the dream. I'm talking about this person loves me so much, and then they're pissed at you because they happen to be listening to the ego. How does that go? Do you have great peace when your spouse is pissed off at you, or your kids for the 1,000th time? I remember my mom when we were kids, and in the dream, and we'd walk on the kitchen floor, and our bare feet without our socks, and she would scream at us. So even as a little kid, and I'm not blaming her, but it's like, this is the stuff that's just going on in the ego and the dream in the world. Like everything's fine. I feel pretty relaxed, and they're screaming. And it's not her fault. It's my dream. All of it's our dream. When you start seeing that, you realize, oh my gosh, that's really the way out. Because as long as I make it good and real, what's going to happen? I'm going to blame her. I'm going to blame my childhood. I'm going to blame people who molested me. I'm going to blame people who beat the shit out of me. I'm going to blame going broke. I'm going to blame being abused in so many different ways. I'm going to blame. And then you see like, oh my God, I'm never going to get out. I'm never going to have peace. But it has to be a situation where you start seeing it as a dream, because if you make it psychologically real, it holds you. And you'll never have peace in here, or I'll say in here, but I'll just say in your mind, if out there you're like, it's you. When you're pointing at yourself, because it's your unconscious mind acting out. It was so difficult for me to take until my life sucked. And I had so much just intense guilt and grief and rage from childhood where I was like, yeah, this can't be it. And I also had in the world traumatic experiences with family members who said, I'm leaving here and I'm going to do that on my own. So they took multiple family members, took their own lives, multiple in my family. And so like in this world, there was so much intensity in this lifetime of mine in my family where it clicks. And I'm like, there's no way. I know what happened in the world, but there has to be a better way. This can't be a place where you get your way out by killing yourself or by drinking it away. Like it clicks eventually, guys, I promise. And these are some of the motivators for me to start doing the course. And I'm not a teacher, eternal student. I'm just sharing. But this idea of peace being within, and guys, it's coming from a person who was, I'm saying a person, a mind, let's say a mind, but for someone who thought they were a person, who was scared, self-conscious, angry. On the surface, everything was fine. I was a really handsome man. I had modeling agencies pick me out of crowds, and in the world, women throwing themselves at me. And I'm not being funny. It's just, for the longest time I was shy, but just people, trying to pick me up. So this is not coming from someone who particularly was well when he was led along this path. As the world would judge it, very handsome and everything together and built, and at the time, a couple of decent jobs, and then I realized under that facade there was so much fear and guilt, grief, sadness, rage, and it was in my unconscious, because it's in all of our unconscious, and the world's just reflecting that back to you. And you're only going to find peace in your mind by understanding that the world's acting out. All the world's a stage. Shakespeare was a very wise individual. It's one of the reasons why Jay gave the course in Iambic Pentameter. It makes you think and take your time. You're not on the spiritual buffet line when you pick up A Course in Miracles. If you want the peace of God, you got some work to do, and it's a lifelong path. But I'm evidence on the level of form, or in the level of form, or on that level, at that level, that someone with all types of fear and guilt, and who's been through a lot of severe struggles, and has also on a level of form lived a really cool life. I can tell you, through the struggles and the nightmares, and through the absolute, as the world would judge the highest of highs, some of which these choices I made because I faced a lot of unconscious fear and guilt, the peace is going to come from within your mind. However, as you're guided, this does not give you an out to say, hey, I'm going to punish myself and suffer. But no. Like, you're entitled to live your worldly dreams and to have your seemingly personal interests as you make visualizations. And that's why Kelly and I circle the globe. We have a lot of fun doing it. So this is not punishment. If it's all a dream, have fun and don't take life seriously, because it's a thought. Life is but a dream. Think of one of my favorite shows, Kimmy Schmidt, when she goes, and again, you see the symbols left and right. I'm not really here. I'm not really here. We're not really here. That's the beauty of it. The more real you make it, as the world does, not only will you not have peace, you won't be looking within, you'll be looking outside, your life will become more chaotic and hellish and nightmarish. So I love you guys. 45 minutes felt like 45 seconds to me. And this is what happens when you do things from spirit, from love and inspiration. You see that time's an illusion too, because I felt like I talked with you guys for 1 or 2 minutes and it's 3/4 of an hour. So it's time for some evening yoga. And as a call to action, obviously you could always stop by my blog at bloggingfromparadise.com, where I sell courses for bloggers, some inspirational ebooks too. You'll find them under the store tab. I'm just funneling people there. To be honest, going international soon, you'll see soon, and they pay through PayPal. And I know Gumroad just does the quick bank account. So I'm pushing those things more as I make sales on those, and it goes right to my bank account. I'm abroad. But in all seriousness too, truthful disclosure, transparency, obviously very helpful guide. So the store tab, how to get featured on world famous blogs, How to Retire Life with Ivan Hopping Part 2, which is a book for digital nomads, and also 7 Steps to Build a Full-Time Income Earning a Blog. And the last one is 7 Things I Did to Go from Scared Security Guard to Smiling Island Hopper. So those books are for sale, and courses for sale, bloggingparadise.com under the store tab. I love you guys. Thanks so much for joining and taking some time to listen. The piece is there, guys. I'm not a teacher by any means for mind training. I'm an eternal student. I made that vow unconsciously, probably years ago, but many months ago, I made the vow. I'm just sharing now. So any of the questions, what I would say, my only piece of advice really is to check out A Course in Miracles, acm.org. And one of the books that helps you lead you into that is called Disappearance of the Universe. It's radical, but I guess a call to action would be check those out, but just start watching the world and your mind. Like, start watching your mind and how it perceives the world. And just at a level of form, there's no peace there. It's temporary. And the closer you look, it's a dream, it's an illusion, but you're going to see what appears to be the reality of chaos and fear ruling it. And it's all your unconscious mind acting out for you. Wow. You're that powerful. Your mind goes forever. It sounds nuts until you realize the hell you've lived in by imagining yourself to be little. The universe is in your mind. You're not a tiny little speck of flesh that turns to dust like this. No. Do not believe that. It's not true. It's not reality. The world's acting out what you believe in your unconscious, and that's where you're going to find the peace. And when you become disgusted enough with this dream of a world, with this illusion, and all the stuff that goes on in it, I guarantee you'll say, yep, I've had it. I'm fed up. I've had it. And that's when you look within, and that's when you realize, oh, the salvation's in here. Remember, guys, when you think it's in the world, look at those ascended masters. Were these beings morons? No, they were not idiots. Yogananda, Buddha, Jesus, Gandhi, they're not morons. They knew what they're talking about. So that's it, guys. Have a lovely morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you are in the dream. Until next time, you know what to do. Enjoy paradise, all. Thank you, YouTube, and thank you, Facebook. Whoa, YouTube, we're freezing here. Oh, I don't even know if I was on. That's the thing. Who even knows with Facebook? But whatever. Later, YouTubes.